Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. A little bit loud. Okay. Local motors, the future of value creation. My name is Wolfgang Bern, and I'm heading the European operations of Local Motors, an American company with the headquarters in Chandler, Arizona. And I would love to know, whom of you has heard about Local Motors before? So quite a few, but still somebody here who doesn't know about Local Motors. So it's worth talking about it. So the future of value creation. I need to create some value here first, okay. In your program it says it's decentralized and it's collaborative and it's networking. So if we talk about the future, then it also means that something is coming to an end. The current time is coming to an end. So let's have a look what it means.
This is the end. The end of the assembly line. The end of the showroom floor. The end of the smooth-talking salesman. The hard sell, the soft sell, the oversized inflatable gorillas, and overinflated inventory that absolutely must go. This is the end of the junkyard full of old cars leaching chemicals into the ground. Born from the concept of cradle-to-cradle manufacturing, printed in front of you to be the exact car you want. Melted, deconstructed, and rebuilt to be the next car you need. This is where vehicle manufacturing as we know it comes to an end. And where vehicle manufacturing as it should be begins.
All right, so we all know the situation today. Products are created, value is created, and they end up somewhere in a dump. So what is the future of value creation? And our name actually doesn't say it all. You could be misled by the name Local Motors. You could think we only produce vehicles, but it's much more. We actually create value. So our vision is to create a better world through upgradable hardware and actually have the value creation in a cycle that doesn't end. We are not only innovators or manufacturers, we are innovators and manufacturers. So we do both, and this is very closely related to the value creation and the value chain. We do not prototype and we do not mass manufacture. And this is currently the case in value creation. There's mass manufacturing of products. We are pretty much sitting in the middle, in the sweet spot. So we don't go for mass production, but we go for upgradable production. So we don't always produce new, but we upgrade. We started with vehicles because the vehicle is a very complex system, and that's our world, to have a look into those systems, into the vehicle systems, and to actually decomplex it. A car that we all know from today, if we look outside, lots of cars, has many thousand single bits and pieces, and we try to just fix the complexity, and by fixing the complexity, we fix the complete value creation. So that's why we 3D print cars, and I will show you later how it works. So the current vehicle has no future in the way it is, because it's just creating rubbish. It's creating toxic substances once it comes to the end of its life cycle. It's $1 billion industry. It's $1 trillion industry, actually. So if we fix that, we are fixing a lot of the current issues that we have with waste disposals. So let's go back to the point where we start to go into the future. and we started with co-creation. What does it mean? Who is actually a co-creator? And a co-creator can be anybody. And we have just put together lots of different examples. And while I was walking around before the speech, I saw many of your nice posters outside. And some of you have thought about co-creation in different levels, in different depth levels, which is very interesting for me to see, because it's the topic of the future. So everybody can co-create with local motors, be it an engineer, be it a designer, or be it a cook. He might have some qualities for vehicle production, for vehicle creation, so everybody is welcome to local motors to work with us. And then we micro-manufacture. We have small production factories all over the world, currently 4 in America and 1 in Berlin, and it's planned to set up more around the globe within the next 10-15 years to actually produce locally for the local demand with local products. So we don't have one product that we use worldwide in every market. We just tailor-make it according to the demand. Now let's have a look at the traditional value chain. And you can see that you have raw material, you have tier 1, tier 2 suppliers, and you have the actual OEM manufacturer sitting in the middle. After you produce the product, you have the third-party logistics, dealers, and the final customer. This is a very long process. Usually it takes 5 to 7 years in the automotive industry, from the actual idea to the product arriving at the customer. Now we are talking about the future of value creation. So what do? We take out 2 parts. We take out the third-party logistics and we take out the dealers. That's not too spectacular. So we do a little bit more. Actually, we not only take it out, but we integrate it. And this is the local motors system, as we call it. So we integrate the tier 1 suppliers as co-creators who work together with us. We integrate the raw material suppliers, and we have direct contact to the customers, from the demand to the product. So at the end of the day, this is very much streamlining the value chain, and we can bring products to market much, much faster and according to the customer demand. We have done that with the Rally Fighter that you have probably seen somewhere on the internet when you look for local motors, which was the first collaboratively created car. The Rally Fighter was still an internal combustion engine vehicle, and it was created in a short time frame as well, asking the community, actually it came from the community. There's a demand in Arizona to drive through the desert with a tough vehicle. So this one was created by the local community, and obviously is nothing that you would use in Hamburg. You don't get any parking, and the TÜV is also not too happy about the vehicle. So this is something just for the local market. The next product was the Strati. The Strati is pretty much the proof of concept that we can reduce the complexity of vehicles and that we can actually 3D print vehicles. So the Strati consists of 5 parts. One is the complete body, and then the other 4 parts is just the wheelhouses. So we print this car currently in 30 hours, and then we just assemble it using parts from the shelf, existing powertrains, existing wheels, and battery. So reducing the complexity, being more fast, being more customer oriented. We did the same thing with Airbus. We made a challenge to evaluate how to use an existing Airbus technology, which was actually a vertical takeoff mechanism for a drone, how to implement this for other usages. In this case, for cargo, for humanitarian help. Now let's go into the process. We've seen the products that came out of the process. Let's go into the process. We have Local Motors as a company. As said, 150 people in America for the time being and 13 people in Berlin. And we do have the community. We do have the big online community that I showed before. Currently around 50,000 people have registered and more or less actively work with us on their projects and on our projects. But this is virtual. So we also need it in real life. And in real life, we have the microfactories where the people are also invited. The co-creators are invited to work on the products together with us. And this is new. So there's a lot of value in that. First of all, for the co-creators to experiment, to have access to machines like big 3D printers that they usually don't have anywhere else. And of course, there's value for us as a company because we have so many people who help us. It makes the whole process very fast and very efficient, and we get ideas that we would not necessarily get from our own team, because of course you can only hire a limited amount of people. Well, the output of this process in our case is vehicles. We have done cooperation with Airbus, and we used exactly this. We have leveraged the community, the existing community, and we have leveraged the existing microfactories, and the output is drones. So in this challenge, we got more than 400 entries of people who wanted to participate, give ideas, and we are just going into the next stage now to actually manufacture them. Another partner is General Electric. What have we done with General Electric? We used the existing community, we used the microfactory, and the outcome was home appliances. So a couple of minutes earlier when I started the presentation, I said, Local Motors doesn't actually, just the name, doesn't explain what we do. You can be misled to think we are a vehicle manufacturer, but as a matter of fact, we are a value chain creator. So we create a lot of value just through the community and the microfactories and applying this to different products. Vehicles is our own products, but as said, it might be things like home appliances. So it's actually about the process and streamlining the process. What comes next? Now, this is physical products, but it might also be digital solutions, especially when we look into the future, everything becomes computerized. So digital solutions is also an outcome where value can be created through this process. And who knows what comes tomorrow? Many other partners approach us day by day to find out how can they become more flexible, how can they become faster, and how can they save resources. So at the end of the day, we build ideas, and we build ideas fast. And I give you one example, which is the current example of Ollie. How do we do this? How do we actually put and implement such a process of co-creation? We launched a challenge last year in April, and we called it the Urban Mobility Challenge. We asked the community, how do you envision the traffic in Berlin in the year 2030? And at that time, we got 81 submissions to this challenge, many interesting concepts. Some people suggested to have an anti-gravity propulsion system to just beam people around. Others had cargo tricycles, and others had little compartments that you can put on existing S-Bahn, U-Bahn train systems. And the winning concept was actually Ollie, an autonomous, electric, and shared shuttle bus system. So, but today I don't want to talk too much about the product. I want to talk about the process and where the value creation lies. As you can see, we started this challenge in April 2015, and it was running until around June when we defined the winner. We started the engineering And in between, we actually checked the demand of the product. So we had different stakeholders, for example, Deutsche Bahn, DHL, people who actually are in the transportation industry of people and of goods. And we exactly specified what is the demand. We had the concept now, we had the design of the vehicle, but where exactly is the demand for this vehicle? So this took us a couple of months, and we started the engineering in October. And just a very short time after, around 6 months, we had the finished product. By using new technologies like 3D printing and by using a new process of co-creation. So this is actually the finished product. Also here we partnered up with different companies, IBM for example, who's adding cognitive intelligence to the vehicle, so you can talk to the vehicle talks to you, and you can learn about the specifics. So basically, the future of value creation at Local Motors is the idea from cradle to cradle. We do not want to create products that come to an end at a deposit, like the cars you saw in the very beginning, but we want to create products that we can keep using, that we can recycle by using new methodologies and new processes. And that's it for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bern, for this nice presentation. I guess there might be some questions from the audience.
What's your revenue model, and are you cash flow positive at this point?
Sorry, say again, what's?
Yeah, what's your revenue model, and are you cash flow positive at this point?
Well, obviously, if you have developments like this, then it takes some time to be cash flow positive. But where do the revenues come from? And as I explained, one side is the product side, and the other side is the process side. So obviously, the revenues come from the process side at this very moment by working together with partners, and the positive cash flow for the Olli is expected within the next couple of years, because obviously the development took a lot of resources. So the business model for the Olli is to actually provide mobility, not necessarily to sell the vehicles, but to provide mobility together with operating partners.
A somewhat sort of big question. What's your sort of vision for the future? For example, your children or even grandchildren. What I mean is, as far as I can see, you are sort of a subsystem now in the sort of big system. You're talking of big companies like the Deutsche Bahn and so on and so forth. And you are sort of a small partner in this business. Is the objective and is your idea that there will be a sort of slow change, meaning that the big corporations will get smaller and you try to sort of get bigger and bigger, and at some future stage maybe be more dominant in the system of production, in the economic system, and also of course in the social system than the big corporations we have today?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question, actually. I will start with the buzzword, be more dominant. No, actually it's not the objective to be more dominant, but the objective is to produce according to the demand, to produce better products, to produce environmentally friendly products where the demand actually is. So, for example, we have a couple of islands, like you take Mauritius, for example, or you take Jeju Island in Korea. Nobody has ever heard about it, I guess, but anyway. Or you take Dubai, which is not an island, but nobody would ever put a car manufacturer there, a vehicle manufacturer. But for us, it's very interesting to go there because the market size is big enough to justify to put a little micro factory there and have the output just for the local market. So by this, we reduce, of course, other factors like transporting goods around the globe and just be there where the goods are necessary. And it's worth doing it. and it's also financially viable.
Very quick question. How do you choose? Like, what kind of competition? How do you choose who wins the design, and what happens to the people that don't win?
Yes. Well, basically, how do we choose the winners? The community is voting for the winners, and as I mentioned before, the stakeholders. So if we do a challenge in a certain area, then we always invite stakeholders and see does it actually make sense for them. Because it's one thing if you have a fancy product, and it's another thing to actually commercialize the product and identify the demand for it. So that's important. So we use the community and we use stakeholders. The people who don't win, is the question, is the definition of winning.
But you have a second prize or something like that.
Right. So basically, for the time being, we grant different prizes: first, second, third prize. But of course, we have 500 people who contribute or participate, and we can't give out 500 prizes. But the question is, really, why not? And does a prize need to be $100,000, or can a prize be something of more value to this community member? And this is exactly a point, and it was good talking to you before on your graphics. So this is exactly the point we are working on at the moment. Because right now, all those challenges anywhere is usually like a pyramid shape. You have many people, and all are working for that big prize, which is not cool, actually. It should be vice versa. So it should be people working on it, and everybody is somehow rewarded. And we are working exactly on that business model because feedback came from the community, and we are listening to it very carefully. And our team is working on implementing mechanics that they actually have some benefit of co-creating with us on our platform, that they learn. And most of the co-creators, and we can see it on the study that the university made, Mr. Redlich, that they made before at the Airbus challenge, to actually see why do people come and co-create. And it's quite interesting. So just have a look outside, you'll see the results there.
If I would want such a microfactory in Rotterdam, how many partners would you be looking for, and how much money would they have to put on the table?
Well, actually, it's not a franchise concept. So
I mean, get in partnership, and you know, you need to build that factory, and you need to attract the right people to do it.
I'm not sure if I understand the question in the right way, because it's Local Motors who puts up the microfactories,
yes,
where we identify the demand. So it depends on the situation if we go and do it, but it's not the case that somebody is coming and investing into it. If this was the question, or.
But it could be that way. You know, we're looking at marine and offshore and aquatic drones at the moment.
Yeah.
Which and there is a lot of demand for that.
Mm-hmm.
We're good at prototyping. We don't have the factory.
Right.
If you would want to build that factory together with you.
Right. Then we should meet.
How much money would we be looking at?
Well, we wouldn't look at any money, because you don't pay us money in order to set up a factory. We do it.
Okay. Now, then we should talk.
Yes.
First of all, thanks a lot for the interesting presentation here at the very back, sorry. So my question actually, I think, is very much related to the previous question, which is, do you plan to open up your microfactories for third parties if you have access capacities?
Well, let me answer it in a different way. What we don't do is contract manufacturing. So we always partner up with interesting entities, partners like Airbus, for example, where we can grow together. But it's always going to be a Local Motors product. So it's not the Airbus drone; it's the Local Motors drone by Airbus, right? So that's why, and it comes back to your question as well, that's why we don't set up a microfactory for somebody. It's always our microfactories, because we leverage in between the factories as well.
Hi, thanks very much. 2 questions. One, who is the community that is a part of this? Sure, but in a specific sense, who is actually engaged on these projects, and where have they been recruited from? Is it a growing phenomenon? Is it geographically limited to mostly in Germany, for example, or elsewhere? Just broadly, who is the community? And secondly, on the open source point, one of the cars that you showed on a slide said it was an open source design, but does that mean it's really the whole design and spec is freely available online?
Yeah, I start with the second question. And yes, it is really available, so you can download everything, you can download the drawings, and yes, it was co-created. Of course, we have a team of engineers who then gathered all the ideas and actually implemented it to the final product. And coming back to the first question, who is actually the community? I can answer this very, very easily. Look at the market, for example, car designers. How many car designers finish their studies? Let's say 1,000, and how many jobs are offered in the market for car designers? Let's say 100. So there's 900 people who have studied, who have the qualification, at least on the paper, and maybe out of those 900, 450 who really do it by heart and passionate. So what do? They have to earn their money. So they go somewhere, and maybe they design something for the theater or something, but by heart, they are automotive and vehicle designers. So those people, they come to our platform. Or just people out of interest, industrial designers or engineers who have an idea which they can't pursue in their day-to-day job. But of course, also we create jobs. For example, the Urban Mobility Challenge that I showed, where Olli came out, the 3rd place was achieved by 2 students from Berlin. They were just at the end of their studies. They created a bicycle tree, so basically bicycle parking station. And they approached us and said, oh, by the way, we are finishing our studies. We are looking for a job. And now they are our 2 very valuable staff members.
There's one more question.
Yeah, how many operative factories or microfactory you already built, and how many cars have been produced so far?
Mm-hmm. From the Rally Fighter, we produced around 100 so far, and we do have an operating micro. And in Knoxville, Tennessee, in Berlin, and in Las Vegas we have a small facility, and in Washington DC we sort of have a demonstration facility. So the Olli, we just started the Olli. We have 2 at the moment. One is in Washington, one is in Berlin, and we just went into production this week in Berlin.
Thank you very much for your questions and the answers, and for your very nice presentation, Mr. Bern. Thank you.